What's up, guys? Jared here, Paintbrush Samurai. Today I'm going to tell you why I believe, no, really, that self-education is the only useful education and it's the future of education, and why it's really the only kind of education that you need to seek out. Alright? It's going to be probably a little longer than most videos, but bear with me. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible and right to the point. It's not to drag on. Alright? Now, the first thing you need to consider about self-education and why it's the superior form of education, and why, in my opinion, it's the only form of education, is what are the alternatives? Alright, the alternatives is school. School is really the only alternative to teaching yourself, right? Now, the reason I would say that self-education is so much superior to, per se, public education is the fact that there is competition in self-education. And what do I mean by this? When I'm talking about self-educating, I'm talking about reading books, going on the internet, doing your own researches, critically thinking for yourself, coming up with your own hypotheses, testing them, getting results based on your own experience. This is what I'm talking about. All right. When you go to a school, right, I'm just going to use a high school for example, but I think the same pretty much applies to college. When you go to high school, specifically public high school, although, to be honest, private schools are generally not that much better, it's generally based on where you're zoned to go. All right. So you're born somewhere, you're born in a town, and in that town they build a few schools. Maybe you're in a small town, they only build one school. All right, so anyone born in this section of the school or of the city must go to this school. So basically your education is being left up to pure chance. All right, based on pure chance, you will get a teacher. All right, so let's say you get a teacher for 10th grade history. All right, now this 10th grade history teacher has been randomly selected for you. All right. This 10th grade English or history teacher probably makes around 40 to 50,000 a year. So not a huge incentive for him to do his job really well. And when I'm talking about competition, what competition does this 10th grade history teacher face to teach his best? Is there another person who can come do his job better, get him fired and replaced, and do it for cheaper? Is that a possibility? No, because our education system does not work like a free market. You are just stuck with this teacher. So what incentive does this teacher have to teach well? Well, you could say he could get in trouble or he could get fired and he's working for a paycheck. Plus, you have, his goodwill, and maybe he's just a pretty moral person. Although, I would argue that it's probably not a strong enough conviction for him to teach well. But let's just use the other incentives for now. He doesn't want to get in trouble. He doesn't want to get fired. Well, what kind of repercussions does a teacher have in high school? What happens to them if they don't teach the right way or not that well, right? And who even measures how teaching well works, right? So if you're going to try and measure how poorly this teacher's doing, what do? You probably look towards maybe the grades. If students are getting poor grades, he must be doing a bad job, right? But there's a simple solution to that doesn't involve you getting a better education. What if I dumb down my curriculum, I make my class easier, I do easier tests, and now everybody gets a high grade? I appear like a spectacular teacher. In reality, I'm giving you an even worse education while boosting my own credentials, per se. What would be the other alternatives for him to try and do a good job, or resist not doing a good job, right? Beyond just grades, right? Do they interview students? Have you ever been interviewed by anybody and anybody was like, how great of a job is this teacher doing? How poorly of a job is he doing? What do you like that he does? What do you like that he doesn't do? Is there any feedback at all from the student to the teacher? I guarantee the answer is no. It's just a one-way street, right? For this teacher, there is no competition. So for him, there is no incentive to do better, right? It's like if you're a basketball team and you show up and there's no competition, there's no other team. All you have to do is show up and win. For them, you just show up and get a paycheck. And the paycheck is not great. So they're just going to a job like any other, right? So they just show up, dribble the ball around, make a few layups. It's over. They win. Right? So that's kind of what your education is like. The teachers are just showing up. Maybe, they teach you some stuff, they make you do some stuff, and they get paid. That's it. It's not entirely their fault. But let's look at the alternative. All right, the alternative is self-education. Now, let's say you want to get self-educated on a topic, right? Something you could learn in school. We'll just say it's history, right? You can go to the internet and you could pretty much find a discussion on any time in history from some of the greatest minds in the entire world. If you're a teacher on the internet, here's what's so great and powerful about the internet. And this is why self-education is the only education that can really exist in the future. If I'm a teacher on the internet, I can reach 100 times more people than a regular teacher, right? Because there's classroom limit sizes, which are necessary, by the way, and there's limited resources, there's limited space. You can only fit so many people into one classroom, and it's only the people who are born in that select city that are going to get your education. Whereas if you're a teacher on the internet, you make an online class, you could reach thousands of people per class. So my moral incentive to do a good job is going to be better than a teacher in school. I can charge 1/10 of the price because I have 100 times more customers or students, and I'm still going to make 10 times the amount. So I have a stronger economic motivation to do better. And third, on the internet, there is no guaranteed job. So somebody could come along, do a better job than me, and charge less, and make more money, and reach more people, and be that much better. Right? So I have an incentive in a competitive way to do the best of my ability to educate the people that I'm trying to educate about history or whatever it is I'm trying to educate them about. Here's another problem with schools, and this also applies to colleges, guys. I'm just using high school because it's an easier example, but lots of colleges take government funding. So everything that applies to a public school pretty much applies to a college, all right? Especially the part about lowering curriculum to increase grades of students, to get more students into the school to make more money, right? It's a business. So you got to take that into consideration. Whereas, an online school, there doesn't even have to be grades. You can just put out information and do with it as you please, right? So that is kind of hard to beat when you consider that. So there's the competitive advantage. And what's really important is when there's government influence in the schools, right? So the government is responsible for creating what the best curriculum is, right? This is known as Common Core. It's an absolute terrible idea. And here's why. If you have the power to control what every single person is going to learn, what's to stop you from forcing them to learn information and not learn other information that it's beneficial to you for them to know or not know? right? I mean, if I'm the government and I'm responsible for teaching everybody, you're going to teach everybody that government is good, right? I mean, Coca-Cola doesn't run ad campaigns saying Coca-Cola sucks. You don't need to be a genius to figure this one out, right? So are we really in a world of complete free thought? And are we really taught to critically think if we're being managed by an entity, right? And that's what the government does. They're managing you by managing what you learn. If you look back at how they controlled slaves, right? The best way to control slaves was to keep them uneducated. That was the most powerful. Not a whip, not a fork, not a gun, not weapons, not being mean. The best way to control them was to keep them uneducated. They can't write, communicate properly, think for themselves, critically think. They're not going to be able to organize an effective way to overthrow any type of power. So that's what the government is kind of able to do when they control everyone's education. All right. Here's another thing to consider. All right. Everybody learns differently and unique. So again, you go to school and you're stuck with this teacher. All right. And maybe he's doing a good job. Maybe he's doing a great job. But maybe he just doesn't work for you. Maybe there's somebody else who's going to teach the exact same information, exact same quality of teacher, but it's just different. And it's more applicable to you. Well, you didn't get that teacher, so you don't know about that topic. But if you go on the internet and you find your teacher there, you can find the person who's most suitable to you. He might not even be the most popular. She might not even be the most popular. They might not be the most famous. They might not even be the best, but maybe they're the most applicable to you. It makes the most sense when this person explains it. That's more useful. Not to mention, schools have a certain curriculum that they have to abide to, like I talked about, this Common Core. And it's going to teach you a lot of general broad stuff that's essentially useless. All right. Somebody who can do a little bit of everything is lots of times less useful than somebody who can do a whole lot of one. I think it was Bruce Lee who said, "Fear not the man who has practiced 1,000 kicks, but fear the man who has practiced one kick 1,000 times." Which one's more intimidating, right? If you are super good at one thing, what is the point of wasting your time learning stuff that is absolutely useless to you? Nothing, right? Nothing. I mean, if your whole goal in life is to be a baker, you just love to bake, and you're really good at it, and, you had some help along the way, people taught you, is it really necessary for you to learn advanced calculus? Probably not. Probably not. There is a lot of subjects and topics that schools hit on that not every person needs to know. It's just not useful. And what also stinks is a lot of schools are missing out on areas that you totally do need. I mean, how many of you guys learned to file your taxes at school? Probably none of you. How many of you took a personal finance or an economics class in school? I bet not a lot of you. And I bet those of you that didn't find it the least bit useful, and I highly doubt they really taught you about what a free market is. The internet right now is a free market. There's limitless competition. People on the internet are the future. You are your own future. If you need to learn something, you want to know something, all you got to do is open up Google. All you got to do is find the right person to teach it to you. All you got to do is find the right YouTuber, find the right website. Read a book. It doesn't even have to be the internet. Like, let's say you're taking a philosophy class in college, and let's say you go to a really good college, just for the hell of it. Let's say you go to a really good college, and you want to base the quality of your education. You want a really good quality education. Who's better? Socrates himself or your teacher at this prestigious college that costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars and then indebts you? Socrates, of course. Well, you can just go to a bookstore and buy a book about Socrates, learn all about him, learn everything that he wrote. $100 or less. And I know what you're thinking. Well, in school, I have textbooks and I learn other thinking other than just my teacher. And you're absolutely right. There are plenty of times your teacher assigns you to go do your own research. Why the hell do you need a teacher to do that? What's the benefit of another person if they just say, go figure it out and then let me know what you think? I'm interested to know. That's somewhat useful, but not I'm going to pay you $100,000, right? I'll literally do that for free. I'll tell you guys, hey, go research a topic that you're interested in and then come tell me about it. There you go. I've just provided solid college level education for you. Right? I mean, this is what I'm talking about. They're literally telling you to go self-teach, and it's probably the most effective thing you could do. You're paying them for no reason. You're showing up for no reason. You're on their time for no reason. The internet's on your time. I can learn about philosophy right now. I can learn about philosophy tomorrow at 5 p.m. You go to a school, you pay them money. You pay them a lot of money. You most likely become indebted. You're on their time. You show up when it's convenient for them. You finish the project when it's convenient for them. You get a grade based on their opinion, not your own. Right? How many times have you been in class and you thought, I already know this? But they don't go at your pace. They go at the pace of the slowest kid in class. Or they just go at a totally frantic pace that just pays no attention to the students. It's almost impossible for them to go at your pace, because if they did, they're neglecting everybody else in the class. You go online, you educate at your own pace. Man, this lesson's really hard. I did it 5 times. I just keep doing it. Oh man, this lesson's so easy. I did it 1 time, I just moved on. Oh, I have that memorized, so just move on. I don't need to spend a week now. Right? You know all of your own preferences. You know the best way you learn. You can be your best educator. To a lot of people, this concept is hard because it's like, how can I teach myself? Because everybody who's been teaching them has always been giving them the answers, right? Ever since you're a kid, you're taught that to get information, to know stuff, you ask somebody who knows. So you ask your mom, and then she gives you the answer. So this is what you now expect. You expect, I ask, I receive information. But what you're not often taught to do is to think for yourself. Try to find solutions on your own. The purpose of education is not to teach you what to think, it's to teach you how to think. So consider whether or not your education is teaching you what to think. It's giving you information, telling you this is the answer, or it's just teaching you how to find answers. I know this video is long. It's also really hot in my car. I should have turned the air on first. But I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you choose to follow where the future is already headed. Educate yourself. You want to know something? You want to find something out? You want to learn something? You want to learn a skill? You want to develop skills? Good. Go online. Go to the bookstore. Become educated. Educate yourself.